It's setting up our meeting for Facebook Live, it says. And the notification I'm receiving now from Zoom is the meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. I will believe that once people can see me. And I see us on Facebook on TMFA. I think we're live. So I'm going to act as if we're live. Hi, TMFA. How's everybody doing? It's Technique Tuesday yet again. It's a great way to start our week after Monologue Monday. Hope everybody is having a really good week. You will notice something slightly different today. It is not just my pretty face that is on your screen. I have, and I promised, remember, I promised this would happen. I promised I would bring a very special guest with me, and I have delivered on that promise. I would like to introduce to everyone out there, dear friend and colleague, accent coach Jack Wallace. Hi, Jack Wallace. How are you today?
I am doing great, thank you. Hi, Chris, and hi, everybody at TMFA. It's great to be back here. Unfortunately, I'm having a little webcam issue, so that's why I look like I'm in a teen vampire movie right now. But hopefully you can see me enough to understand what I'm saying.
One of the things you guys should know about Jack is he's actually a vampire. So it's not that he just looks like he's in a vampire movie. He is actually a vampire. One of the only accent coaches in the world who's also a vampire. So special skills abound throughout Hollywood. I jest, of course, I think. So, what are we going to talk about today? So, my friends, in the last 5 weeks, what we've done is we've spent a bunch of time going through and exploring some more vocal anatomy, specifically what I was calling the 5 floodgates of accent freedom. The physical stuff that we can do, particularly in a warm-up, that's going to help us free ourselves so that accents can be more easily accessible with us. And today we're going to take a little turn from that, and we're going to speak a little more globally about accents, some of the theory about accents and accent training. It's why I love to bring my friends and colleagues who are also accent coaches on to this platform with me, because I am not the only accent coach in the world. I'm not the only professional accent coach in the world. Shocking, right? There are lots of great options, and it would be silly for me to assume that I'm actually the best fit as an accent coach for every actor out there. All of you guys on TMFA, I think there's now 67 or 68,000 members of TMFA. There is no way on God's green earth that I can coach every one of you, or that I would even be the perfect fit for every one of you. So I think it's important for you guys to get some more breadth of experience in terms of what accent coaches are out there, different approaches, different ways of talking about accents, and yet, my friends, still much the same. We're going to share a lot, but Jack's going to have his own language that he talks about accents with, his own approach, his own personality, his own, by the way, I don't know if you noticed it, accent. Different than mine. Shocking, right? So I want you guys to have that experience. As always, my friends, I'm going to try to keep an eye on the comments here in the Facebook Live. Because we're doing a split screen here. We're on Zoom, so it doesn't always show me the most like the newest comments right away. So if you do have a question, Jack and I are going to do our best to keep an eye on the chat so that you can ask your questions. And as always, my friends, you should feel free to interrupt me anytime that you have a question. Interrupt Jack anytime that you have a question. Because this wants to be a conversation. We don't just want this to be a one-sided thing where we get to deliver all this knowledge from on high. You know, we are here to serve you and your acting process, your acting needs, and your training. All right, so anything that's going on with you regarding accents, accent training, accent acquisition, accent skills, accent cooking, I don't know what that is, but anything related to accent at all, please do throw it into the comments and we will do our best to address your questions. Also, please say hi. I like to know who's watching here. And I see already, we have a few. As always, Evan J. Mackey is here. Evan, a pleasure to see you yet again. And then Dante Carroll. Dante's back too. How you doing, Dante? And then I am going to destroy this first name. I so apologize. All right, I'm going to think it's Robin Collins, spelled Rhabynn. I hope it's Robin. If it's not, please do let me know. I apologize for butchering your name. So hi, guys. Please do say hi if you are here watching. And also ask your questions. So, Jack.
Hi.
Let's do this. I would like to first address a couple of questions to you from
Sure.
TMFA. In my, I
Excellent.
posted that you were going to be here, and I said ask some questions. And these wonderful actors here on TMFA decided that, we have a couple of questions. So I want to throw those your way first, and
Sure.
then we have some questions that we'll sort of just talk about more generally, and we'll talk about then whatever it is we want. And before I do, Vicky Gard says hi from Sydney. Hi, Vicky. Thanks for joining us from so far away. Here in, obviously here in the technological age, it's not that far away anymore, is it? And I'm personally very glad about that, because you can come see us now on Zoom and on TMFA. All right, my friends, let's start with the first question. Okay, and this comes from the inimitable, whose name I hope I didn't ruin, Robin Collins. All right, Robin
Excellent.
asks, all right, about accents, and this is a really great question. Robin, by the way, asks, why does my Welsh accent always tend to fall into or towards East Indian? All right, why do those things mix for me? And I love this question because so many actors that I work with experience very similar things, not with Welsh to East Indian per se, but with one accent to another. So, Jack, let me throw it to you. And what's your answer for Robin? Why does her Welsh keep slipping over into and melding with an East Indian accent?
That is a great question. One of the things to realize about dialects in general is that some of the dialects from all over the world have common features. They share different sounds within them that you might not expect. And so for these two specifically, I think it's much more to do with the pitch contour, the way that it goes up and down within one sentence. They're very characteristic features of both a Welsh accent and an East Indian accent. And so if you kind of stray too far in one situation, you might end up on the wrong continent completely.
I love that answer because it's crazy how like these diverse places share accent features.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
sometimes there's a historical reason, and
right?
sometimes there's not at all.
Yeah, because on one level you're like, sure, that makes perfect sense, and then on another level you're like, that's interesting, and it doesn't maybe intuitively make sense right away to you, but this is why accents can be so diverse in this world and also be so alike in a lot of ways, just because it's all language. It's all spoken by human beings, and human beings tend to share similarities and differences. That's a fantastic question, Robin. Thank you for asking that one. And anybody else out there with any other questions, pop them in the comments. Like I said, let me just check those comments, by the way.
Lots of people saying hi.
Yeah, lots of people. So Clay Powell is here and says, nice to meet you, Jack. Ashley Lewis says, hi, thanks for this. Ashley, you're welcome. We love this. This is what we live for. Helping actors, talking to... you don't have to ask us to talk about accents. When Jack and I get together and hang out, we talk about accents. That's it. Let's see. Anything else? Anthony Coombs is here. Hi, Anthony. Nice to see you. Love this. Great. All right. Let's move on to the next question here. This is a big one. All right. Perennial feature. Perennial, not quite year long, but a regular feature in my Facebook Lives here on TMFA is Christina Harris. And I don't know if she's here with us. She told me she might be called into work, but she was going to watch this if it wasn't live. So she left a question just in case. And it's a long one. All right. So she asks, do you know if you guys have seen The Boys show on Amazon Prime? But if so, I'd love to hear your impressions of what went, quote, wrong with Carl Urban's accent. It was apparently supposed to be a Cockney accent, but it often sounds particularly Australian/New Zealander to me. Since he's apparently from New Zealand, do you think it's a problem similar to Americans mixing up New England and New York accents or various Southern accents because they have similarities? Or is it just that his Cockney is a little off? She continues by saying, I told you this was a long one. This is a good question, though.
And she just arrived, so perfect timing.
Yeah, perfect timing. She says, I ask about this specific example because I know a lot of people who, when trying for British accents, fall into Australian or who mix up different dialects. She says, I was once told I spoke German with a Russian accent. This happens with a lot of other accents as well. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on, one, why this happens, and two, how not to have it happen. And she also, and Jack, I didn't prepare you for this adequately, but in in my last Facebook Live last week, she did double dog dare me uh, and you to speak in each other's accents at some point. So
Oh,
we'll
well,
have to see if that
I
happens.
look forward to that.
So the question. So Carl Urban's accent in The
The
Boys.
boys.
In the script, it's I think supposed to be a Cockney or London accent, and he's drifting towards Australia, New Zealand for some reason. So why does this happen, Jack? Let me toss it over to you there.
Yeah, this actually ties in very nicely with our first question, because there are a lot of shared sounds between Cockney and Australian, and that is historically because they sent a lot of people from London, specifically convicts, over to Australia back in the day. So there are a lot of shared features already. And the fact that he is from New Zealand means that he'll probably have more exposure to those sounds in his life. So if you're going to drift away when you're kind of really acting and you haven't got every single thing down specifically, you're more likely to drift to something that you know well. I haven't got a chance to listen to a big deal of it, but I would assume that's one of the main features that's happening. I think the second question was how to avoid this.
Yes, how to avoid this.
Great question. And a very difficult task. It takes a very long time to master an accent. Dante asks, can you really master an accent? Mm-hmm. Yes, you can, but you have to work on it enough so that it actually feels like it's you communicating rather than you talking and then doing an accent. There will always be a disconnect there if you're doing that. But if you work hard enough on it, starting obviously very technically with the specific features you need for each accent, but then finding how it fits in your mouth, how it works for you, you can absolutely master an accent to that level. And that's kind of the level you need when you are going to perform in such a high profile role.
Turns out, yeah, this level of mastery, I think, Jack, you hit it on the head, and I talk about this a lot here, is that we just need time. We need time and consistency over that time to be able to truly master accents so that when we are acting at our highest level, all that psychological, emotional stuff wants to get out, it can actually go through the accent. Our brain says, yeah, that's a viable pathway of communication, and it is just as satisfying as maybe my own native or preferred accent. Right? So it does really require this time. And I think this is a good opportunity for me to say, I don't think I've said this in a while, but actors, as you're watching TV and movies, all right, and I'm sure you guys watch TV and movies all the time because you should be watching everything that's out there, actors, so you know what you belong in, what shows you should be going out for, what kinds of roles. But you're going to see accents. And some of them you'll go, ooh, yeah, that feels really good to me intuitively, and it sounds good. It's integrated is another way to put it into the performance. Like it really feels like it's the person's native accent. And then there's other accents you hear where you go, something just not there. Maybe it's inconsistent or a sound is weird to your ears. Anything like that. It's important to remember why those things happen. All right, so-called bad accents, or really I like to just call them maybe inconsistent, or they're not, authentic really in that way. It's almost always because the actor was never given enough time to prepare. All right, they didn't have enough time for whatever reason. Production was on the thing quick, or it was a quick turnaround. Those kinds of things. It's almost always because the actor wasn't given enough time. So I want you to think about that. All right, when you book a big role in a big movie or a big show like The Boys, and they want you to do an accent, is it likely that you're going to be given enough time or not? You never know. So you've got to be prepped before that happens to know how to handle it so that you have an accent you can master, all right, to the level where you can be a really good actor with that accent, good accent actor. So you got to have those skills in place before this happens. Because we can't take the accent for granted because it will stick out like a sore thumb.
All right? Absolutely. And I think it's important to reiterate, as this is a group of 68,000 plus actors, from an actor's standpoint, you are going to be held to a much higher level than most people. If you were somebody that went and lived in that region, people probably wouldn't pick out your accent on a day-to-day. They'd just be like, oh, that's the way that somebody talks. But because you're an actor, you're representing a whole region, culture, whatever the accent itself is representing. And so people are going to be looking for any minute little detail that they can pick up on.
Yes. And in this day and age of social media, if people see that and they have a negative response to it, you better believe it's going to be out there.
Just this last week.
On Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and even the news. There's a big story right now about a movie called Wild Mountain Thyme, where several actors, Emily Blunt and Christopher
Jamie
Walken,
Dornan.
they're all supposed to have this specific, I think, County Mayo accent from Ireland, and the movie was released in Ireland, and Ireland was like, "What? I don't recognize."
Oh, was it released? I thought it was just the trailer.
No, the movie's actually been released there in Ireland, I believe.
Huh.
Yeah, has not yet been released here in the States. I think December 11th or thereabouts is when the film gets released here. But yeah, it's had an early release there, and it was just excoriated as an accent crime, and frankly, not doing the people who actually speak these accents in real life a good service. They've been done a disservice, and
they didn't hear themselves reflected back.
Yeah, and
which is what we want.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing we're after, is that we have a responsibility in the authenticity of our accents as accent actors, and for us as accent coaches, to make sure that these things are really, really, really on point in terms of authenticity, so that the stories we're telling are representational of the actual people whose stories we're telling. It's important to do that. Let's see here. Looking at the comments, Christina says those poor actors, they're getting hammered for those Irish accents. And it's true, and we don't exactly know why the accents were in this state. We can guess at it. So we're not going to spend too much time, saying what happened or didn't happen, because simply we don't know. All I know is that IMDb Pro did not list an accent coach. So,
no, and it probably won't.
Yeah, probably won't at this point, but it could be that there was no accent coach and production just assumed the actors could do it or anything like that. But these things are just good to know because they're going to happen from time to time. And we, actors, TMFA, you guys, us here as accent coaches, these are things we can actually work to improve in the industry. And I think we have a responsibility to do that. All right, let's see. Couple questions here.
No.
Vicky Gard says, what's the most popular U.S. accent for Australians to learn, or perhaps the one most natural?
I will defer this one to you, Christopher, as the native American, not the American among us.
Thank you. Yeah, I was born here in America, so I'm technically a native to the American continent.
Exactly.
All right. So the most popular U.S. accent for Australians to learn. So let me just put it to you this way. All right, if you are an Australian or indeed from anywhere outside of America and you want to come into America and you want to work in this market and you want to play roles other than people from the place you're from, because you'll have an accent, you've got an Australian accent in this case, or if you're from somewhere else, you've got that accent, right? And you will be cast using that accent. But if you would like to play Americans, then I would suggest highly that you work with an accent coach on learning a general American accent. What does this mean? Right? Where in, if I put up a map of America and said, point out to me general America town, what accent are we learning? All right? Think of a general accent, and a general accent can be this from anywhere in the world. We can generalize every accent on the face of the planet. But a general American accent is an accent that lets me know you're from America whilst missing, kind of losing some very distinctive local or demographic features, letting me know that you're either from a real specific place or that you belong to a real specific group of people. So it's a more general American accent. And you're going to need one of those if you want to work in the American market, because you're going to have to sound more American, because again, you'll be under more scrutiny, like Jack said. You're going to have to sound more American and more like easily American than Americans do. So that's the one. So the most natural one, that's an interesting kind of idea as well. What's the most natural accent? Frankly, it's probably going to be your native accent. It's the most natural. It's habitual. We live with it every day. We talk in it every day. So we want to think of expanding that to acquire other accents. And I would say start with a general American.
Yeah. And to your point about being under more scrutiny, especially if you're from another place, you can see this demonstrated really, really well if there's a well-known actor from somewhere and then they take on an accent role, as opposed to somebody that starts their career in an accent, then they're going to be interviewed and they're like, oh my goodness, you're from Australia, you're from France, who knew? And but if that same actor had done a role in their native accent and then did that role, it would be, oh, well, you know, this word, you said, and he was supposed to say,
Yeah, we notice these things more, especially if you're more well known, right? It just goes without saying that that's going to be the case. If people already know the way you talk, they're familiar with it, there'll be that additional level of, let's look into this. Let's listen more carefully. Can't avoid it. Can't avoid it, my friends. All right, let's see here. Another great questions here, my friends. By the way, I'm going to have to rush through these. These are great. Okay. Clay Powell asks, with accents, how important is, quote, cultural lingo or phrases when using or working on an accent, and how do you master, study, or work on such? That is a great question, Clay. Jack, what do you think?
Yeah, I love to incorporate things that are cultural lingo, phrases, things from the region into my teachings when I do specific accents, because it really just helps build another layer on top of these are just sounds.
The
Especially
cultural thing now that we're adding into it.
Yeah, and it's been a bit of debate recently with some dialect coaches in the industry, but that the new wave definitely seems to be encouraging additional cultural layers to these things in the same way that you would with a role as well. It's the industry is changing and has been changing for the past 20, 30 years before you could get away with like a stock accent, stock character, and now we want to get super granular because social media is a huge influence. The people that you're talking about will hear it, will see it.
Has to be more nuanced, and frankly, we'll use this word again, authentic. And part of authenticity is the identity of the place that the accent comes from, the actual people, and their lives and what that is like. And so cultural lingo and stuff is a part of that. I always suggest, when you're looking how to practice that, Clay, and stuff like that, you want to look at the actual human beings who come from that place. Like, go right to the source. YouTube, thank God this exists. Google, Pinterest, all sorts of places we can look for actual human beings who speak these accents in real life to understand how they fit that way of speaking into their life, and their just their presentation as they go through life. We can also make a distinction here really quickly about accent and dialect. I call myself Dialect Coach Chris Lang, and he's Accent Coach Jack Wallace. Now, these terms are going to be thrown around a lot as the same thing in the industry, so get used to hearing that. I myself will do it all the time, but sometimes it's useful for us to distinguish. Accent, if we say accent's like a unique way of speaking, sounds, the rhythms, all that's endemic to a people. Dialect is going to be that plus now word choice. So Clay, this is what you're into right now. This is dialect stuff, probably, as how I would define it. And that's going to be another layer of your accent, another layer of character, another layer of storytelling. Very important one. Okay, another question. Christina says General American is like the newscaster's accent. Interesting. I hear this a lot, and I'm going to quibble. Quibble. Christina, wait for it. I'm quibbling with that. You're not wrong, all right? Do a lot of newscasters have General American accents? Absolutely they do. Is there like a newscaster accent that we could point to for General American? I would say no. No, there isn't, all right? I think that there's going to be more breadth than that. And I think it's more important that we look at how actual regional American accents begin to lose those demographic and local features and become more general. And then we can point out the similarities between those and find a version that works for you.
Because if you took the exact kind of cadence that newscasters use, you won't find anybody talking like that in a regular conversation.
Jack, we're here in TMFA today, and everyone's asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, I see that they've got the questions here. And
Right, so there's an extra level to the newscaster thing that, while the sounds, I think, are more general American-like and have less regional distinctiveness, the demographic features are off the scale in terms of they really belong to that newscaster group of people, right? So I think it's important to look at it like that. But that's great, Christina. I'm so glad you pointed it out. Thank you. Thank you for that. Another question. Dante Carroll says, are there any accents that are more difficult to learn? Great question, Dante. Jack?
yes, a very great question, and one we get a lot as dialect coaches. And unfortunately, the answer is it depends where you start from. If you go on a journey, you can't get to the destination without knowing where you start from. And so accents that are vastly different from what you already do, or have features that you have to use a lot that you don't use in your everyday life, will probably present more of a challenge than ones that have more similar features to your own, I would say.
Yeah, and again, it's going to be very personal and unique to who the actor is and where they're starting from. Yeah, I've worked with actors where like that absolutely, like, it's so far away, I don't know how to get from here to there. That's hard. But also think about this. What if the accent you're learning is like this
Super
close to
close.
your native accent, and you have to detect all those little subtle differences? That can be just as difficult. I will say this though, and I will hang my hat on this principle all day long. The thing that's going to make accents either easier or harder for you is how good you are with your accent skill and your accent technique. That's going to be the thing that determines how easy or hard it is to pick up an accent. Because it's not that learning accents ever really gets easier, you get better at it.
You level up.
Yeah. It's like a video game. We should do an accent video game. What do you think, Jack? Where you
I'm
level
not
up.
sure many people will play it, but yeah, I doubt.
It's going to be a real niche market, and I'm excited about that. All right, my friends, accent video game. Pitch some names in the comments. We want to hear what you think. That's a great question, Dante. Really good question about like where should I start? What's going to be harder, or easier for me? And it's going to be based on your level of skill with technique, accent acquisition skills, right? Which, by the way, you can learn in my accent skills workshop. Stay tuned to find out more. All right, lots of good questions here. Let's keep up with it. Christina asks, wouldn't one of the U.S. Southern accents be more natural or easier for Australians? That's an interesting question. And maybe is the answer I would get, because we have to think about this. Southern accents in America, where do they come from? They're the great-great-great-grandchildren of English, Scottish, and Irish accents predominantly, though there's some other stuff filtered in there. Where do Australian accents come from? They're the great-grandchildren of London accents and English accents primarily, though there's other stuff in there. So they do share common ancestry. So they're going to share some features, right? So it's possible you may have easier access to them, but like we were just talking about, accents that are closer to what you do sometimes are harder than accents that are further away from what you do, or vice versa.
Yeah.
It's going to be a thing, right? But great question, Christina. All right, Vicky, God, hi, Vicky. Vicky's here. Vicky says we have more and more American productions coming here, so the jobs here are here. I talk for a living. All right, so the jobs are here for the American accents as well. Right. So in terms of your Australian, so the American productions are going to. So you're going to have American accents for those, I think.
In the Australian market, yeah, because we're outsourcing more and more. Production over there as well.
To wonderfully tell more kinds of stories than just American stories. Stories for people of color and different cultures and outside of America. I think it's fantastic this is happening. Vicky also asks or says, yes, I've heard that. I can't remember what we said to yes.
We were talking about the famous people changing their accent.
Right. And she says, do not reveal your native accent in auditions and self-tapes. Maybe.
Case by case, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, think about this. If casting already knows you, like they're going to know your accent. But it also could be an advantage for you to slate in your target accent for the audition, do the thing, all of that, and then, say thank you at the end in your own native accent, just to give them an idea, like, oh man, we didn't know that you were from so and so. We thought you were a native speaker of this accent. That can also be an asset to you. So it definitely not one or the other. So just keep in mind context. Context will help you make this decision. Okay, let's see here. Robin Collins is back. Is there a word?
Aha.
Is there a word for the noise someone makes while thinking? Yes. So the American or the French or how important is it to know those distinctions for an audition and role? You don't know, Robin, how happy you've made Jack and I with this question. Jack, hit it.
Yes, these are called hesitation sounds. And the reason why they're so important is because they show the muscular setup in your mouth when you're not even speaking. So as you kind of advance in your accent mastery, you may find the vocal tract posture, sometimes called the oral posture of your new accent, where your muscles in your face and your tongue may sit in a slightly different way from your habitual usage. And so if you hold that position and just make sound, it will change depending on where your tongue is in your mouth. So right now, if you just kind of take a breath.
Let's do this together.
Yeah. And then I just did one from my own one unintentionally, but let's start with that one. Let's see if we could all make a sound similar to and now do that again, this time paying attention. Where is your tongue in your mouth compared to where your teeth are? What is your jaw doing? We'll try and make that exact same sound, but with that in mind. Excellent. Now I want to do what had to change to go from to
Ooh, I know what I did in my mouth. Jack, what did you do in your mouth?
I did two primarily different things. One with my lips and one with my tongue.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I felt those too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my first one, my tongue was kind of in a flattish shape, kind of in the middle of my mouth. For my the back of my tongue lowered down a little bit. And I did that M sound, so my lips closed to do versus So yeah.
And this is crucial, my friends. Like, I'm so glad. Like, I can't tell you how glad I am you asked this question, Robin, because this is crucial to you finding out the basic physical alignment of your vocal tract in a new accent and getting used to that, so that every time you have to think and go or whatever that is, like, you go back to that home base in the accent. It helps you live there. Helps you actually wait for this.
It's an anchor.
Think in the accent. It's awesome, right? Like, so good. Thank you, Robin, for this. This is great. So, how important it is to these distinctions for an audition and role? Crucial. I would say it's crucial as you up your level of mastery that you have those things. Because if I'm doing an accent, let's say I'm doing an RP accent, not unlike Jack's accent, and I hesitate something like he did, and I'm doing this, I'm talking, and suddenly I go, I don't really sound like I have that accent anymore. I've switched back to my own accent's way of thinking. So it is going to be crucial.
And for all of you theater actors, it's like being on stage and not having a line.
I love it.
Just because you're not talking doesn't mean you sort of go, which is the equivalent of dropping all of that kind of muscular positioning that you found.
I love that. I love that analogy, Jack. I may have to steal it from you.
You heard it here, folks.
Okay. All right, let's look some more questions here. All right, Christina's back. She says, I find Xhosa really difficult because we don't have clicks in English. Easy to make the clicks, hard to incorporate them into words. All right, my friends, this, look in the comments for the spelling of this, Xhosa. This is an African language. It involves two types of consonants, one requiring airflow out of the lungs, another requiring just the airflow trapped in your vocal tract. And that's where the clicks come from. So we get this sound. combined with Xhosa. And so I have to manipulate the air inside my head and then immediately release air from my lungs. This is why it's difficult. Because you're two very different mechanisms of airflow, and if you don't use them in your own native language, like English, we don't, this can be hard, right? Jack, what's the non-pulmonic distinction? How do you describe to somebody, like, just a metaphorical difference between pulmonic and non-pulmonic?
Metaphorically, I'm not sure, but
like with an image, how they feel maybe differently.
Pulmonic means that the air is coming from your lungs, so it kind of feels like you're riding the stream of air that's coming out of your body, whereas non-pulmonic, you have to use what you've already got, so there's no additional momentum. So the difference.
No, I think you landed on it there.
Yeah.
We've got airflow, and then one we just stop. So it feels like there's a difference in momentum of physicality or just the feel of it. And I really like that.
So you kind of starting within a word, which if you're not used to, can be difficult. But if you think about people doing a Cockney accent where they glossalize the middle T, for example, you come up with exactly better or bottle. You'll find people going because they're not used to stopping and starting and stopping and starting the airflow. It's exactly the same thing as with these clicks.
I love it. So Cockney, if you're attempting Cockney accents or something along those lines, you might find yourself experiencing this. This would be good for you to note that if you find that actors, if you ever bump into that, I think it's a fantastic thing to pay attention to. Let's see here.
We've got a taker for our game.
Say what now?
We've got a taker for our game from Clay. He's down to play.
All right, so we see. So Christina wanted to know if the hesitation sound was a hesitation device. I think I may start calling it now. What's my hesitation device here? But really, fancy. It's again that hesitation sound, that thinking sound. That it's a position that your vocal tract wants to return to when at rest, in between having to do things or knowing what to do. It just wants to go back to their home base. I love it. Okay, interesting. So Clay asks here. I'd play the video game, I hope is what you're talking about. I'd play. Let it record your accent and give it a grade before the next level. Okay. Different levels, different accents, trademark it today. I think we may. It gives us an opportunity to talk about how we rate accents. We've been talking about, earlier on the Irish accents and things like that. The actors ask me sometimes, how do I know when I'm done? How do I know when I have this thing mastered? Obviously, we as accent coaches, that's part of our job, is to sit and watch and listen and mold and things like that. To some point, I'll say to an actor, I think it's time for you to put this one on your resume. I think you can act with it now. I think it's you've got it integrated enough so that we can use this effectively. But ultimately, to grade accents, are they authentic? That's what we want to look at. And in terms of accent performances, I don't think we really need to grade accent performances so much. Either they are successful or not, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we tend to look at. And the audience's reaction or the people whose stories are being told, that's usually what guides us in terms of whether it's successful or not. But yeah, that's a great...
And you'll always have some people that believe that it's not. I've done a couple of videos for BuzzFeed, and one of the highest rated comments on all of my videos is saying, he's not from England, people from England don't sound like that. And it gets all the love. So many people are like, yeah, I know, it's so right. I am from England, this is my accent, this is how I talk every day. But there will always be people that want to find something with something. So
I promise Jack is in fact from England. I promise. I would not have brought a fraud on here, just pretending to be English.
Yeah. But my biggest test for people... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that when you hear these comments about people sort of saying, oh, that's a good accent, that's a bad accent, just keep in mind this as well. People who aren't accent experts aren't accent experts. They don't actually know what they're listening for or looking at. right? In the same way that if somebody said, "Hey, is this a good schematic for a rocket engine?" and you looked at it and said, "Looks fine to me."
Looks like a rocket.
Unless you're a rocket engineer, I'm not sure you're qualified to really assess whether it's a good blueprint for a rocket engine.
Yeah. And my biggest test for the kind of have I made it is getting people to talk in the accent without a script, extemporaneous speech, because that is the hardest thing, because you have to think of the words that you want to say without having the time to think of how to say each word.
Yeah, you can't translate. It's like when you are learning a
Another
language
language.
and you
Yeah.
go from that phase where you think in your own language, translate it, out comes the new language. We remove that middle step all of a sudden. And now you can think in the language that you're targeting. So that's fluency. So I guess it's essentially when we get fluency in that
Yeah.
same way with an accent. Improvisation, extemporaneous speaking in an accent, the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the words in the script we have to worry about, it's all the words in the dictionary.
And
all
words
the
that aren't
slang.
there. Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
basically everything else. So it is one of the more difficult things to do. I love this. Let's see here. Oh, Clay has a story here. So we were talking about whether or not you reveal your native accent in your audition tape. So in The Wire, Clay says that Idris Elba was told to hide his English accent for his audition. And then he got to the third audition, told the truth, and got the part. Right? So context is king, and Idris Elba worked really hard to make sure that he had an authentic Baltimore accent. Like, really hard. So he didn't fall out of bed being awesome at accents. He has to work really hard. Like, Meryl Streep didn't just, like, wake up one day and was awesome at
Was
accents.
the eyed lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, she works, really hard. Daniel Day-Lewis famously would work for a year or more on his accent stuff to get it prepped for his roles. And that's why his roles are transformative. He's a completely different kind of person because of this. Anyway. Okay. Christina says this about hesitation sounds. She says, you got to be careful using hesitation devices. I love this. In a foreign language, because people will think you're much more fluent than you are and start talking to you super fast. I've experienced this when I lived in Russia. I could say, я говорю чуть-чуть по-русски. And the accent was good enough, and my hesitations when I was thinking about what to say were good enough. People were like, ты говоришь по-русски. Like, they thought I spoke Russian all of a sudden, because I sounded good enough to do that. But yeah, but listen, these are problems we want to have.
This is what we want for actors, to fool the world.
Yeah. Like, we want that problem. I want to have that issue where, like, I know how this is supposed to feel in my mouth and go so clearly and cleanly that I could fool a native speaker. Because that's ultimately going to be your job on screen, too, right? I want to believe that you're a native speaker of the accent, and the audience does, too. I love these names for our video game. The Talkies, Speakeasy. That's awesome. Christina asked this. So would you say doing improv and accents is good practice?
I would add a little disclaimer, caveat, warning to this. Once you know it well enough to know what the key features and the kind of target sounds are, yes. Before that stage, you could be imprinting bad habits, incorrect sounds, all of that. But yes, when you feel at like a comfortable stage with all of the different sounds, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And I would say when your accent coach says, yeah, I think we're ready to move to that level, that should be your guide. I don't think that you should ever necessarily self-diagnose in this particular instance, because again, in the same way that you can't watch yourself while you're acting, you also can't listen to yourself doing an accent while you're doing it. This is why we exist, so that we can do that for you, give notes, gradually input detail, those kinds of things. So make sure that you're working with a good professional dialect coach when that happens, who can say, yeah, let's try it out. Let's improvise, and maybe who will let you improvise in your session, and then can take some notes and say, great, here's what's going well, here's where we need to put some more attention, so that this is more authentic and consistent and, nuanced, dynamic, detailed, lots of different ways for that to happen. That would be my thing. Make sure this is your accent coach who can say, yes, let's try that now. But because if you, like Jack said, if you go for it, it's likely that you're going to input some bad habits, and those habits are very difficult to break.
Yes.
Very difficult to break. Let's see. No other questions right now from the comments, but guys, throw them in here if you have them. We've been going, gosh, almost over 45 minutes at this point. Let's see here. I usually only go about 45 minutes, but so let's put a button on things here a little bit, and I'll say this. So Jack, if people want to find you out there in internet land,
In the world.
yes, where will they go to find you, and what's the best way for them to contact you if they want to work with you? How would they work with you? What should they look for here?
Yeah, absolutely. My website is accentcoachjack.com. On Instagram, I am accentcoachjack. On Twitter, I am accentcoachjack. My email is info@accentcoachjack.com. So basically, if you type in Accent Coach Jack into something, hopefully I should pop up. Email is great. Add me on Instagram. I follow people back. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Chris Lang, for putting that in the chat.
Yeah, I just popped it into the comments so you guys could. So anything, Accent Coach Jack, if you Google it, all of his stuff will come up. I can personally vouch. Jack is a wonderful, wonderful coach. Lots of fun to work with. Just know this: Jack doesn't only do British accents just because he's British. All right, just FYI.
Yes. That is a large preconception.
Yes, he does all the accents. All right, the same way that like people come to me, I don't just teach American accents. Right, I was doing Jamaican yesterday, and I've got Portuguese after we finish this, and I've done British accents. So, like, we all have the ability to do all the accents. That's how you know you found a professional dialect coach, is because you say, hey, can you coach this one? They go, yes, I can, absolutely, right away. Because there's not an accent we don't know how to coach, and if we haven't coached it, we'll learn it and coach it to you that day if we need to. So, in terms of what you can expect to do if you meet up with Jack, he's going to take you through like private sessions and all sorts of stuff. So if you call Jack, and I encourage you guys, reach out to Jack. Find him on the internet. Talk to him. If you're looking for a coach, you can talk to me. You can talk to Jack. Again, I don't hold the monopoly on being the accent coach for everybody. So please do reach out to Jack if you think you like him and you're like, yeah, I could work with that guy, and he'll schedule a call with you. You guys can talk and discuss what your training would be like, and he's a lot of fun. So I encourage you, go ahead and do that. Especially if you look at me, you're like, I don't know, that Chris guy. He's a little sus in the parlance of the kids these
Gen
days.
Zers, exactly.
Mad sus, I guess. Let's see here. Christina says, can you guys help with accents in non-English languages, like speaking Russian or Japanese with a proper accent in that language? Yes. Yeah, that process is no different than coaching accents in English, which is our native language. Last year I did a Spanish production of The Crucible. One of my long-term clients got cast in that, and as a Spanish speaker, but not like the dialect of Spanish that they were looking for. So we found a real human being who spoke that dialect. I worked with them, learned how to do that particular dialect of Spanish, and gave it to my actor to use in that way. So it's exactly the same kind of process.
Yep, exactly. We do it for languages we speak and languages we don't speak. But Chris does additionally speak Russian and German, I believe.
I speak German. I speak just enough Russian to get into a fight, probably, and I speak a little bit of Afrikaans as well. So excellent. I do have those, and yeah. So come to me for any of that. Let's see. Oh, no. So Robin Collins, that good question you had earlier, Robin. Thank you for that. But now Robin says, what happened to the double dog dare where we have to speak in each other's accents? Well, we can sign off doing that. I'll just say that. We'll sign off doing that, maybe. Okay.
Why don't you teach me a phrase in your accent, and I'll teach you a phrase in mine.
I'll teach you a phrase in my accent. Let's see here. I have all these little flashcards. You guys know I like flashcards out there. All right, here's one. This phrase. My brother owns a number of them. All right? So one of the things that I will focus on with any actor, I love coaching this. this way, is the physical stuff that's happening. So what's the difference between my physical alignment and Jack's physical alignment? Say a couple of big things. Jaw position is going to be one. Jack has a little bit of jaw protrusion in his accent compared to me. So his jaw is going to want to release a little bit back towards his ears and just down here. All right, just a little bit, just enough to feel it not going forward ever so slightly. And then his tongue is going to want to drop in the middle and the back a little bit. So he's got kind of this shape of a tongue. All right, and then he'll speak more or less through that. So that hesitation sound, if he said, that's where we want to start from for this accent. So a couple of sounds that we want to think of. The most important one right away that people notice, I would say, is the fact that in America we go and in Britlandia he goes So we need to have this sound, right? And we'll put
How do I do that?
You put that on the end of brother and number here. So to do that, he's going to take his tongue and he's going to kind of pull it up and back a little bit off of this sound, and the tongue will go and the sides of the tongue are going to kind of curl up sometimes. They're maybe pressing against his insides of his back teeth. I have a wide tongue, so that's what happens. Just know that you may not have as wide a tongue as I do, so the sides of your tongue may not quite touch your teeth. So we go from and we get a little lip rounding with that as well. Yeah, and so we get my brother.
My brother
owns a number.
Wait, draw down, back, tongue this way. A number
of them. That's great. Now, if Jack wasn't an accent coach, I imagine I would have to talk about this O sound, moving from his native accent, which is more likely to be an O, to O, which is a back of the tongue. O kind of movement. And we might even have to talk about this word OF, changing from of to of. That lip rounding goes away.
Of.
So try it again. My brother owns a number of them.
My brother owns a number of them.
There it is. Jack Wallace, accent coach extraordinaire, doing an American accent.
And so if he was doing mine, we would just reverse all of that. So
protrude the jaw.
I would say, my brother owns a number of them.
My brother
a number of them. Yeah.
My brother owns a number of them.
Exactly. He's gone for the very high class number of them with the little the crowd version of.
Because you know what I've been watching on TV this week?
What have you been watching?
The Crown.
So this is just like Keith Urban with his accents. He's probably very exposed to them. Chris has been exposed to this kind of heightened received pronunciation over this past week. So
exactly. Yeah, it's what I've been hearing. So it's just in my brain. My brother owns a number of them. You know.
Yes.
I should be on The Crown right now. I should play Queen Elizabeth in that show. I think.
And I should be Harry.
Yeah. I love it.
Yes. But it was lovely talking to everybody. Thank you for all of your questions and comments. Like Chris said, if you need to find me, I'm at Accent Coach Jack on all social media and my website. And yeah, this has been wonderful.
Yeah, and you guys know where to find me. As always, I'm here on TMFA. So is Jack, by the way. So if you guys have any questions ever about accents, put up a hashtag TMFA question, hashtag accents, and Jack and I will be able to see it, and we can, go ahead and if you can tag him as well, and you can tag me in both of those posts, whatever those are. Please do ask your questions. We are here to help, after all. So you know where to find Jack. We're here on TMFA as well. You know where to find me, dialectcoachchrislang.com. If you're interested in upping your accent prowess and skills, my Accent Skills Workshop is online and on demand for you. In addition to that, you'll have access to my office hours, private sessions, once weekly while you're doing that. So reach out to me via my website. I have a very friendly chatbot who will be happy to take your information and help you schedule a Zoom consultation with me for free. All right. And you can do that. I want to help you if you guys want to learn accent skills so you can approach every accent on the face of the planet. Please do reach out to me. Now is the best time to focus on training before you need it. All right, guys.
And if you're not watching this live, please continue to put in your comments. We'll come back and check.
Absolutely, yeah. If you guys aren't watching this, we'll totally come back and see the comments. We'll answer your questions there. But I'm definitely going to have Jack Wallace, accent coach extraordinaire, back with me here on TMFA at some point. So if you guys do have questions or stuff you would like us to address, pop that into the comments or on a TMFA question as well, and we'll be sure to do that. But for my own part, Jack, I'm so pleased that you joined me here today. It's been
This is great.
an hour
Thank
of
you.
us just yakety yakking away, and it doesn't feel like an hour at all. Time flies when
To
you're having
us.
well, to us, it doesn't feel like an hour. I hope to you out there on TMFA, it also feels like a mere blink of an eye. And go back and rewatch this for all the information. Thank you guys so much for your questions and your comments. Come back next week. And I don't know what I'll be covering next week quite yet. So if there is something you'd like me to cover that's on your mind, please do let me know that as well. All right, everybody, that's it for us today. I'll see you guys next Tuesday. And we'll see you on TMFA. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.